This is David Lynch, in case you don't know.
Thank you for opening your home to us.
You got it, you guys. See you. You guys brought some rain with you. Sorry, it's not sunny California.
Iowa is sunnier than
Here, wow. Go figure.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
You look great.
Good deal.
You meditate this morning?
For sure. Did you all meditate this morning too?
Yes.
Good.
We can do it again with you. Yeah?
Pardon?
We can do it again with you.
So, David, we thought we would have each person just take a moment and introduce themselves and where they're from, if that's good for you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So why don't we start with Eden on the end and work around?
Sure. I'm Eden. I'm the Associate Program Director for your program. And I was born in Iowa and left for a while, and then I'm back there.
Good deal.
My name is Helga Lipschitz. Very sweet. We've met before.
Yeah.
You know that we went to the same art school from the East Coast. I just spent the last 9 months in this wonderful program in Iowa and doing a documentary series about artists and consciousness.
Beautiful.
I'm Jennifer Katchler. I was born and raised in New Jersey, and I've been living in New York City for the past 9 years.
And you were in Iowa too.
Now in Iowa.
Yeah.
My name is Gregor. I'm an architect. I was 25 years. I was a professional mountain climber, but for the last 10 years, I'm more or less just a filmmaker. I'm coming from Slovenia, Europe.
Fantastic.
My name is Agnes, and I was born in Poland, and I came here from Australia, where I studied for the last 6 years.
Where were you born? Where in Poland?
Near Wrocław,
I don't know that.
the central sort of western part of
Uh-huh.
Poland.
Okay.
Colin Thomas from Fairfield.
Good to see you.
Good morning, David.
Good morning.
My name is Laura Bustillos. I'm from the U.S.-Mexico border, El Paso, Texas, and Ciudad Juarez.
I know El Paso and Juarez.
Really?
Yeah, when we were shooting Dune, we would go from El Paso through Juarez to the dunes. There, we shot some scenes there near Juarez.
Wow. Oh, wow. I think that area might be called, it has a funky name, Samalayuca. It's like big sand dunes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. G'day, David. Karen Borgia from Australia. Been landlocked in Iowa for 9 months. Looking forward to coming back to California. Yeah.
Great.
Gabe Romero. I was born in Mexico and I've been in Fairfield for the last 5 years.
Uh-huh. Where were you born in Mexico?
Close to Mexico.
Uh-huh. I lived in Mexico City for a year and a half.
Oh, nice. Very big city.
Yeah, big. But a great city. Really, really great city.
Joanna Plasky. Very excited to be here. Mainly live in New York, Fairfield, and Palm Beach. And very excited to be with all these talented students. Amazing group of people.
Fantastic.
Hi, David. I'm Monica from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I lived 11 years in Spain, and now I'm living in Iowa.
Fantastic. Strange life.
I'm Sue Davey. I'm born, raised, and stayed in Fairfield, Iowa so far.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline. I'm from Minneapolis, but I lived in New York and Albuquerque for a while too, so I'm good. And actually planning to leave here in about a month. So.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm from Washington, D.C.
Good to see you.
Morning, David. I'm Adam. I've lived in St. Louis for 23 years, then moved to Iowa, and want to come here. So.
Gotcha. Good deal.
Yeah.
Hi, David. I'm Chandler Balcom. I'm from Wilmington, North Carolina.
I was in Wilmington for a while.
I was gonna say I lived in the apartment building that you shot on Lincoln Street
Really?
before I moved here. Yeah.
Wow. Incredible.
I'm Shamily. I'm from New Zealand, and I'm the program administrator.
Great.
I'm Johnny Coffeen. I'm from Southern California. I grew up in the high desert.
So. My name's Rodolfo Rincones, and I'm also from El Paso and Ciudad Juarez.
I got you. Good deal.
My name's Lloyd. I'm from Anaheim. Been spending the past few years in Fairfield.
Gotcha.
Morning, David. I'm Steve Schott, born in Johannesburg, South Africa, and then Denver, and then Los Angeles, and now live in Des Moines, Iowa.
Wow.
And I'm the instructor for this semester for your program. So thank you for having me.
Good deal. Very good, you guys.
Very good. So, David, the students have prepared, for entertainment purposes only, not soliciting feedback, a minute of each of their productions. And I believe they're queued up if you'd like to watch those now.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll be very happy to see them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
You seem to be overall quite a troubled bunch.
Sorry, I like the mic.
You just need to get that out of their system. They're all fine.
So, speak whatever you wish.
Q&A.
Q&A.
Q&A. Yeah.
Who wants to start? Don't be shy.
What kind of coffee are you drinking right now? What kind of coffee are you drinking?
This is David Lynch signature cup coffee.
How do we stock all our shop? We should just have a whole cabinet in the classroom.
Good deal.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes.
So, David, in your book and in numerous interviews, when you talk about Dune, you say that you view it as a failure because you didn't have Final Cut. My question is, I've seen the movie a couple of times, and my question is, if you had Final Cut, how would the movie be different?
I don't even like talking about Dune, but I have said before, I knew when I was signing the contract that I was signing away Final Cut. And from that moment, I felt like, looking back, I started selling out. Because I knew Dino, I knew what he was like, what he would go for and what he wouldn't. So I'd have to go way back before that, and I don't know what it would have been. But it wouldn't have been what it is.
But I love that you and Dino did Blue Velvet right after that.
Yeah. And I had Final Cut. Yeah. My salary was cut way down, and the budget was cut way down. Yeah. But I had freedom, and it was so beautiful. Yes.
I'm wondering, when you're like submerged in your creative process, if you're really introverted or very extroverted.
Well, when you're painting, you're just you in the paint and the ideas. In film, I always looked at film like moving painting, or that it was. It's not that you don't have a lot of help, but it's all got to pass through one person, and it was just like painting. So much of cinema is not like that, but that's the way I saw it, and. But most everything takes place internally.
When you go to the editing room, do you still keep perceiving new things that can come?
Oh yes. Editing is a place. It's like you can discover many things and experiment in all the different, parts of making a film. So if you're hands-on and in the world, things can happen, and you can get new ideas along the way. And I always say, if you get an idea that makes it better, and because I think the thing is not finished till it's finished. But if you might get ideas that don't work for this thing, but an idea for something else, you write that down and save it for the something else. But it's always kind of like a work in progress. And if you're in the world, and sometimes it's just way better to be in it than farm it out.
I believe the students met with Dwayne yesterday.
Yeah. Well, Dwayne is a great editor and a very good guy, and he's painstaking, and but really like a master editor. Dwayne is. Pardon? How did I know how to choose Dwayne? I don't know. I don't know where I heard about Dwayne. Dwayne and I started working together on Blue Velvet, and we were going to go to San Francisco area, Berkeley, to Fantasy Films to finish Blue Velvet, and Dwayne was a local up there, I believe. So one thing led to another, and he was recommended, and we met and liked each other, and off we went.
This is not quite a question, but more of just a comment. But back in 2011, I read your book, and I was going through a really rough time in my life, and after reading it, I knew that TM was what I needed in order to solve all the issues that I was dealing with. So I learned how to meditate, and then right after that, I started producing a short film, which was an incredibly stressful experience. There was a rock star that was like the executive producer, and it was just out of control. But I meditated twice a day, every day. It was just what I did producing this film. And because of that, because I was true to myself, true to the project, and true to my meditation, it then inspired the director to learn how to meditate. And then that inspired the other producer to meditate. And then from there, they've introduced TM to about a dozen people. And it's so incredible to know that by your influence as a filmmaker, it inspired me not only as a filmmaker, but to meditate. And then I just have been passing that on, and I just think it's really beautiful, and I want to share that with you.
That's really beautiful. Really good, really good. That's how it goes, you know, word of mouth, and also people seeing something, some difference.
I'm just going to piggyback on that. I'm sorry, just
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to piggyback on what Jennifer said, that I was in Seattle when you were doing the book tour for Catch a Big Fish, and
Which book? I mean, not which book, but
which place?
Which place was it?
I don't know if it was the City Hall or it was one of the really big venues.
Uh-huh.
And then I followed you a couple of different places because I was traveling at the time. And what struck me is how often people came up to the mic to ask you about if you're so enlightened, why are your movies so dark?
Right.
And that question it staggers me that people ask that question of you.
It's kind of common sense. They might want to wonder about meditation.
Can you speak to that though? About
I've spoken to it a million times.
Yeah.
You know, when you start meditating, it doesn't mean the next day you're going to be enlightened.
Right.
And we're all different on the surface. They say we're all one at the base. So we have likes and dislikes, and all I say is you don't have to suffer to show suffering. Stories always have these things. Otherwise, it'd be one straight line, and it'd be Snoresville. So, but you don't have to suffer to do that. And a lot of people think, and I always say the same thing, it's like in France, you know, this romantic idea of the starving artist suffering in the garret. And it's very romantic for everybody except the starving artist.
Right,
and it's a drag, a horrible thing. The only good news about it, I say, is that he might be able to get girls because he feels sorry for them.
But how about the importance of being able to explore the dark, though? I mean,
you get ideas. It's not like I don't ever say I'm now going to explore the darkness. Some people might do that, but I get ideas and I fall in love with them, And another thing I always say is like, you know, you fall in love with some girl, maybe she's not the girl you want to bring home to your parents, but you're in love. What can you do?
Great.
This is several part. I can do several questions. Is that okay?
Sure.
I'm a friend of Joe Johnson in North Carolina.
Oh,
He
yeah.
told me to send his regards. But he told me you shot Blue Velvet on anamorphic.
Yeah.
And I was just curious if there was a reason why you chose it.
Widescreen,
All
Jack.
right. Fair enough.
Anamorphic is so beautiful, and it's just, it just seemed like, you know, like I always say, some films are black and white films, and some films are color films, and since Blue Velvet has a color in the title, it's a color film, and the widescreen just felt so good, really good.
And I have to ask, because I've asked you before, and I felt like I didn't get the answer that I wanted. How does David get his hair? How does that process work in the morning? What do you use? You know?
I sometimes, like if I get my hair cut, I comb it and put this spray in it for, you know, to set it up. And that's it. And then I never really do anything with it.
So you refrain from touching it ever?
No, I touch it. You know, I touch it like that. I don't like comb it out, or, you know, I don't work it, you know, too much, but it just goes that way.
He's a pyramid.
I'm satisfied with that.
What's the most surprising audience reaction to one of your projects that kind of really...
Well, it's not so surprising, but in Wild at Heart, there was a scene that, you know, might have crossed the line, and it was very interesting because the film was going along. It was not an easy film anyway, but at a certain point, about 2/3 of the way through, this scene comes up, and a full house becomes like almost empty.
Dwayne mentioned a bit
He
about
did?
that yesterday, so yeah.
Do you get to know what was in this scene?
On the subject of Wild at Heart, can you talk about the Wizard of Oz references and what that meant to you, putting...
There was, again, just ideas. The scene with Sailor and Lula, I really, well, number one, you recommend Barry Gifford's newest book. I can't remember the name of it.
I don't know.
Anyway, it's about Sailor and Lula's son, Pace. And it's just I just love this book. Barry writes very minimal and almost like poetry. And so it's Barry, but it's so sophisticated, it's incredible. And in my opinion, anyway. So I liked Barry's writing. And Barry's writing, I always said, was like there were seeds on the page. And they started sprouting. And so it just sort of took off. In offshoots, different things got expanded in my mind, and this script came out, and I loved the relationship between Sailor and Lula because they had mutual respect. He didn't talk down to her. They were equals, and so I called it a very modern love story. And they just were that way with each other. And like Ike and Mike, and going down the road, and this thing of Wizard of Oz sort of was a thing between them, and they make references from time to time. It just grew out of an idea.
David, how did the idea of the Lost Highway came?
How did the Lost Highway idea come? I don't know. You know, it grew. There was some... I had an idea for something, and Barry had an idea for something. And we got together. I flew up to Berkeley, where Barry lives, and we sat in his office, and I told him my idea, and he told me his idea, and we each hated each other's idea. And then a thing popped up, and I told him an idea that I had. And he said, "Oh, I like that." And that was a kind of an idea that involved the Mystery Man. And one thing led to another. We started talking, ideas started flowing, and the thing emerged. You guys are sitting right now in the bedroom of the Lost Highway house.
This was the bedroom?
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Was the exterior of this house the...
Yes, the exterior, but it was a little different.
Was it in the back, or did you change the front?
Changed the front, and before that, this house was completely different. Then it got similar to this, but not quite this, and then it was now this. So
is the little speaker the same?
Huh?
The little speaker on the front door, is that the same?
That's not the same one.
Yeah.
And but it's in the same place, I believe. But maybe not. But I thought it would be easy to find a house but it needed to be a house that you couldn't see the front door unless you moved through the house and got to a window that you could see. And most houses you can see the front door, pretty easily, pretty fast. So I got this house primarily I needed a place for a studio, but also I needed a place that I could change, get it all changed, rearrange it for the film. And so that happened.
How long have you lived in this house?
I don't really live in this house, but this house was purchased in '95, I think. Yes.
Do you have a lot of projects in the back burner, or is it just like whatever excites you the most immediately?
I have some things that are sitting, and for one reason or another, I never made. And I have a lot of fragments of ideas.
David, Straight Story was a very different kind of film for you. What motivated you what was in that story that motivated you to make that film?
I say that I was then with Mary Sweeney, and another Mary Sweeney, and her childhood friend John Roach. Mary read this thing in the paper about Alvin Straight riding a lawnmower to visit his brother, and the two of them started writing a script, and it took them three years, I think, to do it. And I knew that they were working on it, and I knew the concept and different things, and I had zero interest in that. Fine for them, not fine for me. And then one day they finished the script, and they asked me to read it, and I sat down and read it, and all this emotion starts happening. And so it was the emotion from that piece that got me going.
My friend Wendell Jarvis was a film commissioner of Iowa at the time, and we were in L.A., and he brought me to your home, and you and Mary Sweeney showed us the edits on your system in your home, and we spent the afternoon, and it was a wonderful experience.
Oh, fantastic. Great. So you've been here before?
Not in this house.
No, the next door, yeah.
I was wondering, how do you approach writing characters? I mean, do you have any advice about, or just what's your process?
I'm telling you, it's this thing that the cook or the chef doesn't make the fish. And these characters, they come along, and they must have existed someplace, and they walk in and introduce themselves, and then there's you end up editing their dialogue, but you even if somebody else has the idea. It's you picture it right away and see what they're wearing and how they move and how they talk, and it becomes just as if they walked in to your mind only. It's just weird. And then they do what they do, and yeah.
Thank you.
David, I have a question.
Sure.
So I make documentaries, and I resonate with the David Lynch Foundation and taking TM to places where it's needed.
Right.
And I've actually met some students at MUM who were introduced to TM thanks to the David Lynch Foundation, and their life has completely transformed. So I'm curious as to what within you inspired you to take on this role, this it's a responsibility, in my opinion. So
I have no idea. I don't know quite how it happened at all. I don't know. I there was a trip I took to MUM a long time ago, and it was really cold and really rainy, and I think you probably know this story, but anyway, Dr. Bevan Morris took me to a high school play, and the theater was packed with enthusiastic people, and out on the stage came the high school students.
I was one of them.
You were one of them? You guys were unreal, man. And that started a lot in my head, because I saw this consciousness just glowing off their faces, and I saw so much intelligence, timing, sophistication, happiness, just no pretense, authentic. It was beautiful what I saw, and it just made a big impression on me. And I think somewhere along this time also I went and visited these tiny children that were, I don't know if they were in the first grade or what, and they were showing me Vedic mathematics. And then I went and visited this Vedic Schoeller, PhD program people. And every place I went, I was so impressed with the knowledge and the faces and what was coming off the faces. And then Bobby Roth would get me going to, first it was like 5 or 6 business people were meeting, and he wanted me to go be at the meeting or something like this. And then they got bigger meetings, bigger groups, and then Bobby got me going on this 15 university tour. That was unbelievable, intense thing. And I don't like talking in front of people. And here there were, thousands of people, every university. So it was, it sort of snuck up little bit by little bit. But I think I was in Dr. John Hagelin's living room in Maharishi Vedic City, and he said, "What would you think to have a foundation in your name?" And I thought it was the kind of thing that, people did, and it would be fine, and that it might be listed in some, paper somewhere that there was this foundation, but I had zero idea what it would turn into. And but at first it was the David Lynch Foundation for Consciousness-Based Education, but I wanted it, because Maharishi was so big on world peace, I wanted to add "and world peace." So the thing was born, and it's really taken off. But Bobby Roth is the main driver of the thing, and a great team in New York and all around now. And there's a David Lynch Foundation in England, and one being set up in Australia, I believe, and probably one in France coming, and maybe Italy. And I don't know, there's a lot of activity, a lot of real good programs. A big David Lynch Foundation in South America with Roger Luis. he's doing miracles down there. It's unbelievable.
And then there's the one in Ireland.
In Ireland?
In Belfast.
There is? Oh, yeah. Well, it's not. Is there a David Lynch Foundation there?
Yeah.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah. They need you there. They need the foundation. They need the work.
Yeah,
it's right
well,
on the
we went
peace line.
there on the 16-country tour to Belfast and Dublin, both. And it was great. It was really great. They have a piece of land on the, they call it the Peace Line, but it was one of the most violent places in Belfast. And we laid the foundation stone for a peace palace there, University of Peace there. And on that day, it was called Victory Day in the Vedic calendar. And so Dr. John Hagen, Roger John was there, Dr. Bevan Morris, Bobby, several people we're going on the tour with, and the leaders of Northern Ireland, TM. And Maharishi had us on the phone. It was, I think, 3 in the afternoon till 8 o'clock at night. Like 5 hours on the phone there, standing there. It was fantastic. The last, there's a video of it. The only thing you can see at the end of the video is Dr. Bevan Morris's iPhone, just the light on it. That was it.
I was there last summer, and I spent the summer there, and I went up to that spot, and because I learned about your program there, really fascinating, because all you see are those really violent murals, with the terrorist masks and so forth. It was the most perfect place.
Yeah, I think, we all thought it would happen the next day, but sometimes this negativity is very strong.
Yeah.
Something got to be melted away.
I want to help. With the last name Sweeney, I'm
yeah, you got to go. You're right. Like me, but, get over there then. It'll happen.
Yeah.
I have a slightly different kind of question.
Sure.
A few years ago, I started to write a book about the most terrible experience I had in my life. But then, after 2 years of trying to complete this book, I just changed my mind and I said, let's turn this into a screenplay. Now this year I'm completing a short movie. I still don't know, it's going to be 25 or 40 minutes about this experience, but this I think would be just a first step on the way to my feature movie. So one of my options after I complete this movie in December would be to move to LA. Do you think this is a good idea to find some financiers here with a good, beautiful short movie in my hand?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say. These days, pretty much everybody's got a short movie in their hand.
Yeah.
And LA is an expensive place. And there's so much in the business that's business. It's about money. It's about money. And so if you feel good in LA, like I just happen to feel good in LA, I love being here. If you feel good in here, in LA, then you could come. But don't expect miracles. Fate plays such a huge part in this process. Some people get a green light, some people get red lights, and there's doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it, but obviously there's probably a reason, but in the big picture, but it's all taking a chance. It's taking a chance. And if you give it to the right person, and that person, likes it, and that person has some power to help you, it could happen. Otherwise, you could sit and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. And so I think in some ways it's better to try that, but at the same time figure out a way to do it on your own. Don't wait for somebody to come along with. You'll wait till you die, and it's just terrible. So figure out a way to keep working on whatever it is. Just keep in it, and don't wait for these people. They're not interested in going fast. They're not interested in happily helping. They're interested in making money.
The think is there are already some big producers in Europe who are interested in.
Well, that's where you ought to go then. You ought to go to Europe.
Yeah, I am from Europe.
Yeah, but you go there and
I'll
make
need more money, I think, for this.
Yeah, but it's okay. There's many ways to skin a cat. So if you have a certain amount of money, think of a way maybe you could do it with that, and not wait for bigger money. You could try, but if it doesn't happen, within a certain amount of time, figure nature's not smiling on this. Let's do it a different way. The important thing is to do it, and you can do it in the right way with not much money these days. If you go with unions and all this other stuff, it costs a fortune. A fortune.
Yeah, speaking a little bit more to that, because here we have some students who are about ready to go out into the world and try to do it, and a lot of them have expressed to me they want to come to LA. That's the panacea. I mean, that's what I did. You obviously have done that. But it seems to me, and I want to hear from your experience, that it's changed. I mean, with the equipment, with the resources all over the world now being very film savvy. Can you even elaborate a little bit more? I mean, obviously, Grigor has a European style picture, but some of these others want to do things that are not necessarily LA based or the industry like it is based today. How has it changed for you, and what would you advise them?
Well, it's hard to give advice. Like my daughter Jennifer is making a lot of directing TV shows, and now it's all happening in the South. So I don't know where she is right now. She was in South Carolina and Georgia and Texas. They give tax rebates and all this kind of stuff, and a lot of equipment houses are moving there because that's where it's cheapest to make the stuff. So,
yeah, a couple of years ago, Jennifer wanted to make a movie in Missouri, where I'm from.
Yeah,
but we don't have tax,
right,
incentives, so she didn't do it.
Right. Well, no, I don't think it's not the reason she didn't do it. I don't think. Maybe she will one day.
Yeah.
And she'd write St. Louis.
Yeah, I'd love to work on it.
Yeah.
If she does. Yeah.
So, it's a kind of, the big screen is harder and harder to get for indie film, and I just think it's this thing where it's so great to get some friends together and go do it. Because if you wait the other way, and also most everything new for cinema has come from outside the studio system. And the studio system, they don't, give Final Cut. Maybe some of them do. One guy told me, he said, we always give our directors Final Cut because then they listen. And so there's some that maybe do.
Yeah, I feel like this program has just been so amazing with the fact that we just have the freedom to do what we want, and we're out here with our friends, with Final Cut and doing exactly what we want to do. And I feel like we already made it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, now see, the thing is, like, for instance, what if you all stayed in touch with one another? And the people that, the crew people and all of you all, stayed in touch. And when you could work together outside of this program in the future. And you can have freedom. And you can have a great time making things. That's something to think about. If we wait for, these deals, maybe, we'll luck out. But, a lot of people are waiting a long time. And they could be making something and having a great time doing it.
David, Jim said there was a time when he spent 80% of his time creating and 20% in meetings. And
now it's the reverse.
Changed.
It's the reverse.
Yeah. And is that your experience also?
Well, I think it's experience nowadays. Yeah. Somehow, now looking back, in the early days of Hollywood, people came out here because there was good light, and they put these sheets to diffuse the light on top of the sets, open top sets. They'd get, people together to help, and they'd shoot these films. And now look what it's become. There's 15 trillion rules, and, everything costs a fortune.
But you have to deal with that creatively in what you're doing. Does that impede on your creativeness?
If you've got Final Cut and total creative, control, you'll be okay. You've got to get it in writing. It's not. It's almost like I picture them laying in wait with armed weapons.
Justin.
David, I want to be a producer. I want to talk to you about what your relationship is with your producers, the best kind of relationship you've had with the producers, to give me advice as a producer to meet the directors that I will be working with and championing for.
I sort of see a producer as the director and the crew are like, I don't know what rank they'd be, but they're out in the field battling. The producer has to supply them with bullets and weapons and food and clothes, and they can't be late. They've got to anything be early, and to keep the thing rolling and make it as smooth as possible for that job to get done. And that's how I see a really good producer.
Can you talk to the change from cinema as film to digital, how that's affected your vision, if at all?
Yeah, I've said this a bunch too. Cameras are, they're not all smaller, but they're super sophisticated, as you all know. And unbelievable things are happening in the digital world. But there's a big sadness to say goodbye to this organic thing of celluloid emulsion and developing, and it was so deep and rich and beautiful. Unbelievable. And it's organic. It's something that's great. It's like analog sound, and digital sound. There's a difference. But we live now in a digital world, so you have way more control over the image. You see what you're going to get. In cinema, you look through the camera. You shoot a scene, that film is undeveloped in the camera. You don't see it till the next day. And then you got to go to a screening room to see it. And but here you see exactly what you're going to get. It's incredible. And you've got long takes. And you can talk while you're shooting and not worry about it. You don't have to stop and reload. You pop in a card. It's so fast. It's so great. And you have so much control in post. You have control in editing. You don't lose these little frames. You don't, have bags and, stuff hanging. It's really beautiful. But it's still got a certain kind of soullessness. Hard to pump the soul into it.
David, 5 years ago at the last MUM David Lynch Visitors Weekend, I was this naive 18-year-old kid, and when I asked you, I'd read in your book the chapter where you said, I'm through with film as a medium. For me, film is dead. And of course, me being very young, I thought, oh no, he says movies are dead. And I asked you that in front of an audience, and you're like, no, I said cinema will never die,
yeah.
But film is dead. Now,
celluloid, yeah.
Yeah, not celluloid. Yeah,
celluloid
and you made that clear.
Yeah.
I mean, you said celluloid, the film stock is dead. Do you still think that to be the case?
Well, yeah, look around. I mean, it's hard to come by, and they don't make all the different types,
But will you ever work with celluloid again?
Maybe in still pictures. It would be I don't think I would be able to do it in cinema, and I wouldn't really want to.
Television?
Huh?
Would you use it in television?
No. It would be ridiculous, you know. It's all going to end up on TV anyway, so so many things get lost, you know, from celluloid to the final whatever you show it on.
Yeah.
David, what role, if any, does discipline play in the continuing unfolding of one's art, and how does that relate to, like, do you structure your days in any particular way, or is it more free form, or?
I go where the ideas go, but when your common sense tells you, if you don't do it, it won't get done. It's just that way. You got to do it, or it won't get done.
I had another question.
Sure.
So, in Mulholland Drive, I love that you gave big change. I love that you gave Ann Miller a role. What inspired you? Because I guess she was retired, right, before she got
Probably.
Yeah. What inspired you to give her that role?
I had an assistant who I just loved, and she's since passed away. Her name was Gay. And Gay went to some kind of concert, like maybe a play or a concert, kind of a long-haired thing, and was sitting, say, where you're sitting, and in a row ahead of you was Ann Miller. And she was looking at Ann Miller and thinking of, you know, the golden age of Hollywood and all that. And the next day she told me she saw Ann Miller there, and we were just talking, oh my God, she would be perfect for Coco. And one thing led to another, and there she was. She was perfect, totally perfect.
Yeah, I love that movie. I've seen so many times, and it really does get better the more. I think when I was younger and watched it, I thought this is a very surreal, interesting. But now I actually identify with it because it is your Sunset Boulevard. I mean, it's about how Hollywood can chew you up and spit you out, and it's all about what you make of it. And I think when I move here, I'm gonna definitely bring that movie with me as kind of as a defense mechanism. Like if I get depressed, I'm gonna watch that movie to remind myself to stay afloat.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Speaking of working with some greats, when you worked with Sir John Gielgud in Eraserhead, what was that like working with?
In the Elephant
Not Eraserhead.
In the Elephant
Man. Sorry, Elephant Man. Yeah.
The Elephant Man. I tell this story. One morning I get up and I'm putting on my underwear, thinking, here I am putting on my underwear, and I'm off to direct Sir John. He was solid gold.
Really?
He was solid gold, and I loved working with him. And after we finished, he wrote me a letter. I hope I still have it somewhere. And he asked me, he said, David, you never told me how I did. Were you happy with what I did? I thought, here is Sir John Gielgud. I wouldn't really presume to go up to him and say, I'm so happy with what you did. But then I had to write him and tell him, are you kidding me? So happy. He was really great. He's the cleanest man I've ever met. He smoked these cigarettes that were made by a little shop in London. Probably cost a fortune. They were not round on the end, but oval. And he'd hold them, here in between puffs. So there was ever an ash on his clothes, and it was spotless, always spotless, Sir John. Yeah.
David, what is your philosophy with working with actors and that kind of feedback? You give them
I love actors. I love them. And my philosophy is to get them, first you pick them because they're, in your mind, right for the part. They're not because they're your friends, or they're hot these days, or they going to bring people to the theater. You pick them because they're right for the part. Why would you do it any other way? Okay, then the next thing is to rehearse and talk so that they tune into the idea. Because they bring their talent to the wrong thing, it's not going to live in the film, in the story. So they got to get in line with the same ideas as driving your boat, and you do that in rehearsing. And then when they catch it, the rest is history.
Which actors or actresses would you want to work with that you haven't worked with before?
I don't know. Marilyn Monroe. And maybe Ava Gardner.
Oh, yeah.
Jean Tierney. And let's see. Today, I don't know. I don't know who's out there that I would. I like a lot of people, but I don't know. That, again, it's the role, you know.
David, yesterday we were talking about networking and how to go about it as not to network, but to go and actually get to know people and have people clam up when they hear, oh, he's a producer, how do I impress them, or something like that. Or an actor or anybody who they want to be aligned with. Did you ever have that experience of finding it difficult to talk to people before you had success and then being on the other side of it afterwards?
Talk to people before I had success?
Yeah, when you were trying to make it or break into the...
Well, see, the thing is that I didn't want to ever break in. I didn't care about it. I just wanted to make things. And so on my first feature film, I started it at the American Film Institute, and a whole bunch of very great things happened because I was able to make a feature film there, and I ended up, you know, having more percentage of that than anybody else. They were very kind to me. I was there for 5 years making it, and it was a 2-year program. So, but it was pretty much heaven working on that, except that it was a horror running out of money and not being able to finish it, and then shooting a scene, and then waiting and waiting and waiting to get more money. But still, the world of that place and the world of Eraserhead was, and it was a kind of a thrilling thing for me. And then The Elephant Man happened. Really, again, it's like a fate thing, which I was telling you. It's fate. Who in the world would think the person that made Eraserhead would get a chance to make The Elephant Man? A Victorian drama in London, England, Mel Brooks producing. It doesn't make any sense. Not a bit. But then it happened. So, things happen.
It's funny, when I was 12 and got my first filmmaker's glossary, your name is right next to David Lean. So when I saw you did Elephant Man do, I'm like, oh, he's a British man.
They thought I was I was the young British guy.
Yeah.
And then we got nominated for Academy Award.
Yeah.
So they said, we hear... I said something like, I hear the handsome blonde director's a shoe-in. And I said, I guess it's me.
Oh, my God.
It was Robert Redford.
Yeah.
Robert Redford was so hot that year. He got the Directors Guild honored him. And so he got up to accept the Directors Guild award, and there was about 40 cameramen on him taking pictures, and he couldn't talk. They were so loud, yelling at him and taking pictures for a long, long, long time. it was just, he was just like, he was at his very peak of popularity.
I was wondering what it felt like for you when you were doing Elephant Man and the John Hurt's character came to life, when he actually emerged.
I'll tell you what a story. At the London Hospital on Whitechapel Road, way in the back there was a medical museum, and a man named Mr. Nunn ran that museum. And in that museum, among all these, medical things in jars, there was Elephant Man's plaster cast of his body, his arms and torso and head. And his head was, you could touch his head, the plaster head, and feel his hairs, because the hairs were pulled out from the real body and then transferred into the negative and then transferred into the positive. So still had some of his real hairs in the plaster cast. And his cloak was there, his hood was there, I think some things, other things. And Mr. Nunn loved the Elephant Man and loved the fact that he lived in that hospital. And he would talk to us. And one day we thought it would be good to invite Mr. Nunn to the set. And so he came, and he was thrilled to be there. And he was waiting, and we were waiting to see the Elephant Man. And John Hurt was in makeup for a long time, so we waited and waited. But pretty soon, there were double doors in front of Mr. Nunn, and the doors opened up, and here comes the Elephant Man, completely the Elephant Man. And he just burst into tears.
Back in 2002, when you were nominated for Best Director for Mulholland Drive, I think it was 2002, one of my favorite moments is, you were nominated, and Robert Altman was nominated, and Ron Howard, and a couple others, and the moment I love is after Ron Howard won, there's a clip in that video of you and Altman down in the audience, hugging each other, and it's like, oh my God, two filmmaking giants down there. Yeah. Did you know Altman very well?
I got to know him because when you get a nomination, you end up going to all these different things you got to go to, and lunches and dinners and different things. So Robert and I hang out and start talking, and I just loved the guy. Mm-hmm. It was so much fun to talk to, and so we started palling around. When Ron Howard was going up to the stage, Robert stood up and motioned me, and he went up the aisle and I went down the aisle, and we hugged each other, and he said to me in my ear, "It's better this way, David."
I mean, both of you guys made such great movies that year, for sure. And Ron Howard made a good movie too.
Sorry. Can you talk a bit about this space? What do you use it for? I mean, obviously there's lots of instruments. Do you mix films in here and music?
Make music, mix films, make sounds, record sounds, and work sounds.
Cool. Do you use it to color grade as well, or?
No, well, not exactly. This room has been tuned. Now it's pretty good.
Yeah, but nowhere.
It's not. You can't color correct here. No. At this lab, those screens and everything has to be tweaked pretty much every day to keep it true. And here it just wouldn't be right.
But David, it's not you who color correct.
Pardon?
It's not you, the one who color correct your films, right?
You go to the lab to do it, though. George is our color timer. His name is George. He's Czechoslovakian.
So I went to, this past Halloween, my cohort knows that I went as a Lady in the Radiator.
Uh-huh.
I had such a time of it, putting on the cheeks.
Uh-huh.
And so I found these great photographs of you doing the costume, doing her makeup.
Uh-huh.
And I know you can't reveal those kinds of secrets, but what was it like to see her come to life?
Oh, no, I love the Lady in the Radiator. Yeah.
So we're going to start winding down. If there are any last questions from anybody?
I have a last question. So you mentioned that you lived in Mexico City for a while. Were you creating anything, or
Dune.
did you?
I was working on Dune. Yeah, we were at Churubusco Studios, and we were shooting for a year, 6 months principal photography, 6 months models and miniatures at Churubusco.
You grew up in kind of a small town, right?
Well, several different small towns.
Several
Yeah,
different small
relatively
towns.
small.
Yeah. Well, I come from a generally small area in the South, and coming here was really overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, like, what are the pros of living here? The pros and cons, I guess.
The major pro, two things for me. The light. I never, well, you guys are unfortunately not going to see it because it's raining. But the sunlight in LA, it just was like given me so much life and happiness. And there's a feeling in LA of freedom for me, that anything is possible. You can do anything. You have freedom. And other places I've been, I feel constricted, restricted, and I don't have that feeling of freedom.
Interesting. I feel the opposite way. I feel trapped here.
Well, see,
Yeah.
you've got to go where you feel good.
Yeah.
That's the secret.
David, the last question.
I bet it won't be the last.
We have 45 Yeah, we're going
we
to
do-
12:30.
till 12:30.
Would you
Yeah,
like
okay,
to take a 5-minute break?
Would that be okay with you guys?
Yeah,
we all drink coffee. We
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys, hang for 5 and I'll go take a smoke.
Give it up, Chandler. You don't have to hear. We're going to start in a couple minutes. I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Always putting a positive spin on things, Steve.
I'm just too tall for my hair, that's all.
Yes, thanks for your comment. Oh, makes you cry.
David? Yeah. I might have one later on. Yeah. I had one already.
David, you know when you're in Australia, you had the exhibition in
Yes.
Brisbane. Have you heard about Mona down in Tasmania?
Yes, I've heard about it. Yeah. Yeah.
I think you'd really get a kick out of that.
Yeah, I heard it's something.
Incredible.
Yeah.
You know, this guy set up his private art gallery, and it's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
You really get a
My
kick.
daughter Jennifer went down there.
Oh, she did.
Yeah. She saw it. She told me about it.
She's working on The Walking Dead right now.
Yeah.
So amazing.
Yeah.
You must be so proud of her.
Super proud. She's been hanging in there for a long time.
David, which is your favorite character?
Yeah, your voice is very, very small.
I'm sorry, which
Yes.
is your favorite character
My favorite character.
that you have ever created?
I don't know. I don't know, and I didn't create them. Like I told you, they just walk in. If I'm writing this thing, otherwise it's the character. Like I say, comes alive from reading it, a script, and so there's. I love all of them. I love all of them.
Do you watch Game of Thrones?
No, I don't.
So many things we could talk about.
What's been the most recent thing that you have watched that you've enjoyed?
Well, I haven't caught up with Mad Men, but I really liked Mad Men, and I liked Breaking Bad.
Mm. Oh, where's Johnny? Johnny was working on it.
And I liked the documentary on Robert Durst. Yeah, I really love that. I love Robert. He's a murderer probably, but I love him.
We have about 3 people still out.
Sure.
You had a question?
Yeah, I actually wanted to know, we're all sort of in post-production at the moment, and I in particular have to do a lot of ADR just due to some faulty equipment during the shoot. Have you had that experience of having to do ADR? Do you have any advice?
Yeah, ADR is a heartbreaker in a way. Very rarely do you better the performance, and it's very difficult to get it to sit in with the rest of the dialogue. It's an art form all on its own, and you just have to keep working it and doing the best that you can. I think Dean here could, tell you some tricks.
Well, yeah, I had a little chat with him about it.
Yeah.
Just talk about the ADR.
Oh, yeah.
It's tricky business. Dubbing is the worst thing. Dubbing robs the original actors from their performance. Thanks, Mindy. And it's a sad, terrible thing. Terrible thing.
Well, I'm about to do that 2 weeks of it.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a learning curve, I'd say.
Yeah. It's then again, it's just listening, and it talks to you, and you say it's not right because of this and this and this, and try to get those things corrected as best you can. Lots and lots of equipment these days, to help you, and you're the judge. If it sits well with you and it's working, it's done.
How important are sound effects and music to you telling a story?
I don't. There's not a word that defines just how greatly important it is. It's huge. I always thought of cinema as 50-50 sound and picture, and sound is super important. All the sounds and all the music, I always say, has to marry to the picture and to make that world feel correct. And so it's always an experiment, and that's how come I wanted a room like this to experiment. When most of us go into you're paying big bucks, and the pressure's on, and you don't have time to really experiment. So it's very important, though, that you don't walk away from anything till it feels correct.
You do that in here? You bring in musicians and just lay down tracks and try different things?
Well, we've done that, but normally the music is all done, and the sound effects have been gathered, different things, and then, we have stuff to make stuff with as well, plus a big library, and you go to work, scene by scene, feeding in things, seeing if this works. You think it's going to work. You've got a sound effect, and you lay it in, and it doesn't work. So when you see that it's not working, what can you do to make it work? And you go and you start experimenting. And maybe it never will work. You throw that out and you start again with something else. It's always kind of this action and reaction going. And you just keep working it. Keep working it.
Do you listen to the music when you create? And if yes,
Do I listen to music what?
When you create.
I listen to music. I like to listen to music and not do anything else. I don't like to, say, paint and listen to music at the same time. And I don't like it. And but I like to listen to all different kind of music to see if it gets me ideas. And I see if I like it too. There's a lot of stuff I love to listen to, but I like to listen to new things too.
Do you have any favorite new European films?
I haven't seen anything.
I'm a big fan of Russian and Romanian cinematography, and because American films still mostly built on this super crazy special effects that Europeans are not like.
Yeah. Well, that's probably partly true. And European cinema has always been, my favorite really cinema. But I always thought Europe would hold on to its own voice, each country, each place. But Hollywood has infiltrated Europe big time. And so summer blockbusters are blockbusters here in the States, and they're blockbusters everywhere else, too. I don't know what's going on. It's unbelievable.
What's your favorite food?
Okay, we'll send it out.
We'll train you by tomorrow.
I'm going to try to think. I don't know. Last night I had a salad that was really good. It had,
One time I was trying to find on the internet how to cook quinoa, and I found a really good video of you.
Yeah, quinoa is great. I don't have quinoa so much anymore, but for a long time I made that thing, and it was really good. If you follow that recipe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Best quinoa I've ever had.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? But this salad had some little pieces of chicken in it, and apple, and avocado, and chopped up lettuce, and maybe a little bit of goat cheese. The combo was incredible.
So, David, I think that pretty much all of being an artist is embracing humanity, existence, and I'm just curious as to how you balance your humanity with you being a public figure as well.
Well, I just go along doing my thing. You don't have to, if it doesn't come out naturally, I think now with politically correct, people are like in a cage. People can't say what they're thinking. And even though if it's bad, I just think the dialogue is the key. Get stuff out. Everything's kind of like, with politically correct, I think something strange happened. And now, the things that people tweet about, pros and cons, it's big battles over, the smallest, most ridiculous things. It's getting to be a very crazy world. Very crazy.
Do you follow social media?
No.
When you first came to live in Los Angeles, because I came over from Australia, and I still get a buzz, being here and knowing the history of the cinema and all that sort of stuff. Are there any particular spots that to you, mean something?
Yes.
In that cinematic.
Yes, but they're gone. When I first came to LA, it had, now maybe, I'm for sure they're still able to be found. These places, like I say, a wind of the golden age of cinema. And they're still able to be found. But when I came here, there was a place called Hull Brothers Lumber. And it was an old, huge lumber yard. And they had, they must have done a lot of sawing in there, and they would have this big, tube that would shoot out the sawdust. And this pile of sawdust was about 75 feet tall, ancient pile of sawdust. And the place where you go in to order lumber was right out of the 20s, 30s. It was so beautiful, aged, but a great working lumber yard, the real thing. There was a pony ride and a big giant lot, and they had a pony ride that was from way back in time. And it had a little key place to make keys on one part of this plot of land. Taylor the Pup, a hot dog stand, and then way in the back a nursery, and over here, oil wells and tanks to store the oil in. And I shot a scene from Eraserhead in those oil tanks, and I loved this place. I would go back and visit it many times, and took my daughter Jennifer there. Jack Nance called it Lynch's Park, and it had the greatest feel. Hardware stores were the real hardware stores, In those days, if you want nails, you go to a giant bin of nails, take a metal scoop, put it in a bag, and they weigh it. And if you got a few more nails, so what? And if you didn't have quite enough, they'd just take a bunch and throw them in. Then they started packaging nails. Think about it. What a horror. 5 little screws with all these little labels on them and plastic bags and,
like
barcodes, huh?
Like coffee beans.
Like coffee beans, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
anyway.
I
got my coffee too, but anyway. It was big changes. Now at Lynch's Park, the oil tanks, pony ride, and the little Keith place, all underneath the Beverly Center of Mall, and it's the way it goes.
David, when you went back to Philadelphia for the show last September, did you notice a lot of, because Philadelphia seems to not have changed quite as much at that industrial time when you were there. Did it seem much different to you?
Way different.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's 2 things. Downtown Philadelphia seems like any other town, pretty much any other town. So that's already pretty depressing. And then in North Philly, I went out there driving around, and it looks like you could picture, a Third World War had happened. Every other building seemed to be burned out. Huge poverty. I saw a man beating this dog with his fist, slamming his fist into this dog's head. The dog, crying out. I see these things, out there, and it's just like a hellhole. Miles of it. An absolute disaster. And so it's Philadelphia's still hell, but it's not as beautiful a hell as it was when I lived there. And I think graffiti was born in Philadelphia, they told me. And a graffiti is the worst thing ever. For filmmakers, you can't go to a place and go back in time. It's got all those buildings, those beautiful buildings. They built them really great. And now they're covered with graffiti. And they're ruined, absolute ruined. And then they say, well, to make everybody happy, let's build murals, let them paint murals. These murals are all over the place. It's horrible. It's just ridiculous. The buildings can be so beautiful and pure, and let them paint on canvas or do something, whatever, installations or whatever, but not paint the place up. I don't. For me, it's a complete drag. Horrible.
We will probably never achieve. The human race will never achieve Maharishi's work.
Yes, it will. For sure, it will. Oh, yes. We're in a transition period. Things are actually supposedly getting better. I think what happens. My friend Charlie Lutz, who ran the TM Center here in LA, said when the vibes start going up, some people are going to love it, and some people are going to fly off the handle. It's got to go at a certain speed, or else some real strange things will happen. And they're already happening, but I think it's going as fast as it can go. And we're headed for beautiful, beautiful times for the human beings. Beautiful.
I like that optimism.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere in the world that you haven't been that you'd like to go to?
Slovenia, maybe.
I think I would like to go to Nepal. I went to, in Fairfield, there's Revelations, the sandwich shop. And I went in there one time, and Bill Goldstein, the lawyer, was in there with a guy from Tibet, from Nepal. And they asked me to sit down, so I sat down, and this guy told me, he said, Maharishi said that if you get 121 Vedic pundits in the Pashupatinath temple in Kathmandu, we'll have world peace. Going full-time, the real deal Vedic pundits doing their program. And I said, I want to be part of that. Let's get going. 121, that's all it would take. but it's not so easy.
Not
They've
now
got
after the
62.
earthquake.
Now they got 2 giant earthquakes, and they have 62 pundits full time. And Roger Kingsley is in charge of Nepal, and it's going really well until the earthquakes came. But no one was hurt. None of the pundits were hurt. But they lost one wall, he said, of the TM Center, and but I don't know why those things happen. But this is the way it goes. But I think that will happen. It's just, again, you think it'd be so easy to get that number there. But for some reason, it's not. It's not. It's slow. Yeah.
I worked with Bill Goldstein. I was working at DLF TV, and I worked with Bill Goldstein to go find the pundits to fill that, to go to Pashupatinath. And there were a lot of pundits who wanted to. It was a question of finding them from the monasteries that were actually trained in Maharishis.
Right. Yeah.
It was quite an interesting documentary, and I'm sure that if you wanted to go there, we could find a way to make that work.
Yeah, fantastic. They've come here. Deepak Baskota came here, and Roger Kingsley and Leslie come here. We're talking about Nepal. Apparently, in the 70s, I believe, Maharishi went to Nepal, and in 1 week initiated 35,000 Nepalese. 35,000 in 1 week. He did it in a strange way. There was no TV there, and he brought in, had the equipment brought in or something, and they had TVs on trucks that would go through the town, and all the people could get the message that Maharishi was going to do this, and they came, and maybe you already all know this, but it was something. And then, when he finished with the 35,000, I guess negativity started rearing up, and off Maharishi went, and but he got 35,000 in 1 week.
There are a bunch of DLF schools in Kathmandu that would probably love to have a visit.
Yeah.
Especially now would be good for them. Be inspiring, I think.
Yeah.
To have someone from the States come and be there with them.
I spent half of my life in Nepal. I can be a guide.
You have really been there half your life?
I was climbing there all the time.
Wow, fantastic. Wow.
Great energy in this.
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah.
David, when you're writing a script, are you the kind of writer who makes a solid outline before you start writing new lines?
No.
You go the other way?
I don't know what it will be. If I was writing on my own, I wouldn't have a clue what it would be. I get fragments and sort of fill those out, and I say it's like this. There's a puzzle completed in the other room, and someone flips the puzzle piece in every now and again.
That's great. So you start shooting without the complete script?
Pardon?
So you start shooting without the complete script?
No. You keep writing till you get the thing, but how would you do an outline if you didn't know what the thing was? But you keep working until you see what the thing is, and then you go, shoot.
Do you collect your thoughts then that you're writing in some other form, like a visual form, like on cards or something like that?
Well, I've done that. I write down, if I get an idea, I write it down. And I always say, write it down in such a way that when you read it again, the idea will come back. A lot of times you do shorthand, 2 months go by, you look at this thing and you say, oh, what is that? What is that? You got to write it down so when you read it again, the whole thing comes back. And then you collect those and start seeing how they fit together. And maybe some of them don't, but some of them do, and they conjure new ideas. And another thing starts coming out. More ideas start coming out. More ideas start coming out.
Do you keep your script in your hand when shooting? Because there are a lot of directors that just throw it away.
No, you keep your script in your hand.
Well, I'm just saying, because Bellatar has this different approach.
Everybody's got a different approach. I keep the script there. I follow the script. I always say that you stay on your toes because new ideas can come in. But that's the guide. It's like building a house with a blueprint. And then you see it, and you might want to move the fireplace a little bit here or do something to make it higher and this a little lower.
But did you ever start a film that you didn't know how it would end?
In a way, Inland Empire sort of started, but I didn't know it was going to be a feature. I would shoot scenes, and then later, 3 scenes, the 4th idea came, and it united the first 3 scenes that I thought were independent of one another. So, and then ideas came, and it became a traditional script. But in the beginning, it was scene by scene that I would shoot. And I shot them on a Sony PD-150, and since I started with that, I had to continue with that, even though there were cameras that were, much better.
I have a question about your paintings. I really enjoy your paintings, and I really like how visceral they are. So, but I'm wondering, like, how long does a painting like that last? Is it because it looks like it's decomposing sometimes, and it looks like it has like a life of its own? So
yeah, there's I use a lot of different things sometimes, and so it's hard to say how long they'll last. I think they'll last.
Yeah. Is it easy transporting them?
Pardon?
Is it easy transporting them?
Well, sometimes, I like to frame paintings in behind glass, and then sometimes I see little bits that are down there that had come off. And so it's, I guess it keeps on, becoming what it wants to be.
What were your lines in this short little trailer you made lately, for the exhibition? When you're speaking gibberish all over.
What's it? You're speaking gibberish and what?
Your trailer for this exhibition, was it in Philadelphia?
The one from the show in September.
Oh,
where your sounds like you're speaking backwards.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, just backwards?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
It's balls. White balls.
Yeah. Yeah. They ask me sometimes to do something to video.
Do you consider your paintings separate from your filmmaking?
Very separate, yeah.
And your drawings as well? Or just
Separate. All these different mediums, I always say. Each medium is infinitely deep. Each medium is beautiful. Each medium talks to us and tells us kind of how it wants to be. And as soon as you start working with any medium, you start to get the feel of it and see what it does, and then you can go. And it's strange. Ideas will come for that particular medium, the way it is.
David, do you have artists that you like more that inspire you?
Yes, I do. I have Francis Bacon as a painter that inspires me a lot. Edward Hopper inspires me a lot. Ed Kienholz inspires me a lot. There's a whole bunch of painters I love and sculptors.
I have a question. Do you have any reoccurring ideas that come to you that are I guess not muses, I don't know what word you use, but other things throughout your life that you find you keep going back to?
Women.
How did you meet your wife?
How did I meet my wife?
Mm-hmm.
I met my wife to do a photo session, and she was recommended by Eli Roth.
Is that Bob Roth?
Huh? No, Eli Roth is. I met Eli when he was at New York at NYU or something, as a film student, and he did research for me on a project that I loved, Nikola Tesla, and got to know Eli. So Eli would help me sometimes get people for projects and things like that.
The rest is history.
Pardon?
And the rest is history.
The rest is history. Now we got a little daughter named Lula, who is the sweetest sweet can be. 2.5. And such a little character, you can't believe.
Speaking of women, do you have any tips for like women filmmakers wanting to break into the industry or opinion?
I think it's a good time to be a woman filmmaker, and I think this inequality is going away, and so it's just your work, and just stand tall, and don't take no for an answer, and do what you believe in. It'll be good.
And I think that's a good note to end on.
Really? Okay.
David,
Well,
thank you very much for your time today.
Yes. Well, it's great seeing you all, and I enjoyed seeing your trailers. And I guess we'll get together for donuts and coffee and talk tomorrow.
All right. Thank
Super.
you. Thank you.
Where are you going this afternoon?
You
be poolside?
No.
Can we?
We're going to meet the head of production at Endemol, which is they're the biggest digital producers in the world. And he's a friend of mine, young guy, he's an actor, very dynamic, and they're doing a lot of great production over there.
Cool. Well, good deal.
And tomorrow after here, they'll meet with Michael Aguilar, who's Jim Carrey's development person. Then Jim's going to spend some time with them too.
Beautiful.
So it'll be nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. See you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Good. Sorry, we're pulling that with your wire.
I told him to take that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't know if you have the address for
Yeah, I'm wondering.
It's on the calendar. All
Yeah.
No, it's all the 41 Irvine.
It should now. It wasn't at
So
first.
a lot of them don't have
It doesn't now.
Hey, Dean, could we leave the donuts we brought and bring them out tomorrow?
What's that? Oh, you brought donuts?
We brought 2 boxes and we already had 2 boxes. Could we just leave them here?
David will polish these off by tomorrow. Bring more.
Yeah.
So David, we mentioned to him we'll do Q&A for about an hour, then take a break.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Come back for a few minutes, and then at the last part do some photos.
Okay.
Cool.
Great.
So who wants to begin? Please.
I'm wondering, is there any tip you have for not caring what people think? Because sometimes I
Transcendental meditation. I'm telling you, it's real difficult. People are, well, that everybody's, like we said, different on the surface. And you can't do anything these days without a whole lot of people hating it and a whole lot of people loving it. It's just the way it is. You have to do what you believe in and stay true to that. And then there's that Vedic expression, your man has control over the action alone, not the fruit of the action. So what happens afterwards is you can't tell. You might as well not worry about it. Just if you've done the best you can and stayed true to the ideas, that's it. That's the best thing. And then you can hold your head up high and go about your business. And maybe it's not a great idea to read reviews.
Do you read reviews?
I mean, I have read some, but I don't. I try not to get into that thing. And like they say, the good ones are never good enough, and the bad ones are not pleasant.
I was wondering if in the same idea, I'm working on a screenplay that is really, really personal, and I've just thought about it, the implications to people, to loved ones. So I'm trying to speak in metaphor without really saying something, and I just wonder what you think about that, what your thoughts are on creating something that then in any way is too close to...
Yeah. You can't... There's, again, like sometimes things, offend people, and if you really believe in something and you're into the thing and you're in love with the ideas, it's a human being story. Involves human beings. I mean, it's a truthful thing. If it's very specific and it's something that's secret or confidential or that's going to hurt somebody, that's a little bit of a problem. But there's ways to hide things in fiction so no one gets hurt, really.
David, like hundreds of millions of fans around the world, I want a new season of Twin Peaks to see the light of day. Now, I know you said, I know you said that the new season, the deal with Showtime, it fell through because you said there were contract problems and negotiations.
I never said. Well, anyway, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. But every day on Facebook and Twitter, all my friends are saying the same thing with the hashtag. They're saying save Twin Peaks, and I think I speak for all of us when I say we're not as interested in seeing a new season of Twin Peaks if you're not directing it. So my question for you is, would you be a little bit more specific about what this show still needs in order for it to be the show that you want?
No, I can't be.
Are you open to exploring crowdfunding? Like a lot of.
Am I open to what?
Exploring crowdfunding in order to make it happen?
No, crowdfunding in this case would be not so good. Why? Like if I was a first-time director, or I was starting out, or if I just had an indie film that I didn't want to go through the studios, that would be one thing. But when you're dealing with people that have, at least in people's minds, a lot of money, and you're asking for people to help you out, it's bad. It's bad.
I have a question. Would you recommend writing many scripts or doing like a lot of projects and then choosing one to produce, or like focusing life energy on one story until it's done?
It's the ideas and love, the two things going together. If you're working on something and you're totally in love with it, why would you go and have any problem choosing? You're in love.
Yeah.
And then if you hit some not necessarily some kind of block where it's the thrill is gone, then and you get ideas for other things, your love takes you over there, and then maybe that thing kind of dries up or something, and you realize you've been in love with this first one. It's sort of like that. And so if you are just putting everything in one, and you're not really in love anymore, it's time to move on.
Along that same lines, I'm very in love with my project and a lot of projects that we're all working on. But I find myself kind of spread a bit too thin sometimes. Like, one day acting and then 3D modeling and then editing and then just doing all these different things. And sometimes I feel like it's all getting diluted a bit. Do you have any advice?
It's the kind of thing, like another Vedic thing, where the attention is, that becomes lively. So if you're editing, you just try to give that your whole focus. We can do many, many different things, and many different things in the same day. But when you're doing the one thing, the editing, just really get into it. Really, really get into it. And when that dries up a little bit and you need to do something else, get into that. And because they're all really fun things, and you're going for the goal of making it feel correct, all the elements. So you just kind of keep that focus going from these things that you have to do. It won't get thin if you're focusing and giving it your all.
I was trying to ask you something. We heard a lot about your music composers, and a few days ago we were speaking with Dwayne, your editor, but I never heard anything about your cinematographers, because this is one of the most important relationships while shooting. You know, at least I see it as a husband and wife when I'm doing when I'm working on my movies. You choose all your DPs for your projects.
For sure.
Yeah.
You want to, you know, again, it's like just like actors. You want to get the person that's right for the, you know, part, and the DP is, like you said, super important. And you want to get somebody that you really like working with, who's able to, for me, able to and enjoys experimenting to get a thing right, and is totally, you know, technically savvy. So yeah, it's a very important thing. And then, you know, when you're working, when you're shooting, like I said yesterday, you see what you're going to get. And it's a dialogue. It's like a thing to get the thing to feel correct based on the idea, and everybody works together to get that thing.
Who's your favorite DP you work with?
I really loved every DP I've worked with. Right now, I'm working mainly with Peter Deming.
What's the easiest way to get your idea across to your director of photography?
Talking.
Do you feel like usually they do a pretty good job at capturing what your vision
because
is?
you're working right with them. You know, it's not like you're wondering what they're going to do. You know what they're going to do because you've talked about it, and then you're seeing the stuff. And if this is a little bit wrong here, you tell them that doesn't feel right here, and they understand. They say, because this and this and this. That's too bright, that's too dark, this and this and this. And let's move in a little bit, or, you know, let's do, you know, a nice little tracking shot here. Or, you know, it's just like working together to get it to feel correct.
Do you do storyboards, or is it something that, like, you know?
No, I don't use storyboards. I used to. On Eraserhead, I did a lot of little storyboards. But I think, you know, like, I like to clear the set and do a rehearsal. And then, you know, all the stuff is coming alive right in front of you. You're in the place where you know, pictured, you know, and you have the people that you've, you know, pictured. They're dressed the right way. They look the right way. And now they're saying the lines, and they're in the thing is coming alive. And then it sort of tells you how to shoot it.
David, I have a question. You know, my piece deals with a social issue, immigration. So I want to take a different approach, a more artistic approach. I don't know if you have any insight or advice as to what elements are important to make a social impact through art.
You want to get your message across, right?
Definitely.
So, and you pretend you are the person watching and listening, and ask yourself if this is if this would move me, if this would motivate me, if this would make me understand the situation, and you kind of keep going like that. I think that could be a guide.
Well, there is the challenge of being attached to a social issue that is so personal. So, yeah, that's great advice. I'll have to do that.
And how do you approach pick-up shots? Is that something that you do often, or not?
You just pick them up. No, it's like what you try to do is get everything on the day, and it would be great if you could get even a little bit more. And you know, these days things move so fast. People can barely make the day. You know, everything costs so much money, or you know, you only have people to help you for so long, and it's a horror. It's not right, but it's the way it is. But you want to get into that world, you know, and you want to feel it as you're working. There's so many distractions, but you got to kind of feel it and get all those things, and if you have time, get even a little bit more. And so you shouldn't need pickup shots. Then maybe during editing or something you get an idea and it wouldn't be, I can't believe we didn't get that. Then we have to go back, but it's not easy. And you don't always have the money or the, wherewithal to go back to some places. But so you try to get it on the day.
David, when I was animating my trailer with the bison inside the caves, I had this experience of that just really moved me. About 40,000 years ago, these artists were in that space, and for whatever moved them to do that, and it just felt like time collapsed, and it was still in that cave.
Yeah, beautiful.
So I'm really, really interested in my series. I'm going inside the creative caves of other artists that I've had the privilege to work with my whole career, and I just am thinking about that with you. You've spoken so well about that we are transmitting. I mean, we're getting transmission, and like radio waves, that we're really capturing ideas that already exist in the ether. And I felt that when I was in that experience of working with them, and I just wondered what you can say to that a little bit more. I'd love to hear you talk about it.
They say that it's all out there, past, present, and future. It's a really incredible creation. I guess we could pick up on anything.
I think those cave people I think they were meditating. I think they were simply
Maybe they were. Maybe they were. I don't know. Maybe they had someone like Maharishi teaching them.
Yeah.
Then they started painting.
Right.
You got it.
All right. Can you tell us more about your editor Dwayne was talking about this script that you wrote, the working man, Happy Worker.
Okay, the Happy Worker is a script I think someone gave me way back when, and I didn't want to do it, but I gave it to Dwayne to read. And Dwayne has been in love with this thing for 15 or 20 years, so maybe longer. So I'm going to be executive producer on it, to help him, try to raise money and get it going.
David.
Yes.
What made you decide be the executive producer of Nadja?
Nadja?
Yeah, I love that movie.
Well, let's see. My former wife, one of my former wives, Mary Sweeney, was friends with Michael Almereyda. And I liked Michael, and so I got talked into financing this film with my own money. Something say never do that, you're supposed to never do that. I'm still in the hole, but yeah, it was a really interesting film, and it might have a new life to come out. I don't know. We're thinking about it.
There's a line of dialogue in Blue Velvet that makes me laugh so hard whenever it and I don't know why. It's the morning after Jeffrey's beaten up by Frank, and he comes down to the kitchen, and Aunt Barbara says something like, what does she say, like, many marriages, Jeffrey are trouble, and then he says, Aunt Barbara, I love you, but you're going to get it. What is Jeffrey threatening you to do to her?
Punch her in the face.
That's a great. I don't know. Thank you for that line. That's great. Yeah.
David, have you ever wanted to make a comedy, an actual comedic?
Mark Frost and I wrote a comedy called One Saliva Bubble.
Yeah.
And it was being cast. I was directing this thing with Dino, and we were casting. We were location scouting. Steve Martin was going to be a lead with Martin Short, and it was going to be great. It was going to be really fun. And then at that point, Dino's company went bankrupt, and so it died the death.
Because I was
Pardon?
I asked because I was dying laughing watching that Barbie video on.
David, let's revive that project with Jim.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah.
I think you should do stand-up.
Yeah.
David, do you think that it's again about that idea that you talk about, that we are perceivers, no? We perceive these ideas that come like waves of radio, right?
We're fishermen, fisher ladies, fishermen.
Fisher ladies. So do you think that the same idea can go through ages and it's perceived by different artists through time?
I don't know for sure. They say all these ideas are out there, and they're bubbling up, but there might be an idea for like E equals MC squared in the time of the cave, but they don't know what that is. You know what I mean? The time wasn't right. They could catch it, but they wouldn't know what it was. Now, then there's people like with Nikola Tesla. He is now been given credit for inventing the radio, but what's Marconi in Italy was inventing it at the same time. So these ideas are there, but they seem to be for the time, and but I don't know how that works.
Coming from your painting and art background, how was your transition into the movie industry? Was that easy? Did you get it right away, or did you find someone to help you in the industry?
I am telling you, only thing I had was fate smiling on me. I wanted to make, eventually I wanted to make Eraserhead. And I had been accepted to this school, and they gave me money to make Eraserhead. Not only did they give me money, but they gave me a place to work. And I had a total setup. But I don't know how that happened, really. And after that, Eraserhead came out, horrible reviews, but some little things started percolating. But then my next film was The Elephant Man, so you can't figure that. Those two things do not go together, and yet it happened. I think the thing to do is to be true to yourself. Don't think about the business side of it. Don't think about breaking into any business. Think about making your film in the best way you can. And then you have maybe a chance. Somebody, if you ask their opinion, what do they know for your stuff? Nothing. Be true to yourself. Do your best work. Finish your film, and then see what happens. And you can't control that. It's fate that does it.
Catching the big fish. Have you done any real scuba diving?
I have scuba dived in Payette Lakes, Idaho, in the 50s.
Because when you're going down, it feels like a meditation. Is it?
Yeah, it gets real quiet, and with the goggles, things seem a kind of a clarity that's like in meditation sometimes. So it is true.
Obviously, Maharishi has played a major role, influence in your life. Are there other teachers, philosophers, thought leaders who you read or partake of that have impacted your life and your artistry?
I had a great teacher, Frank Daniel, at the Center for Advanced Film Studies, AFI. He was dean of the Czechoslovakian Film School, and then he came and was dean of AFI. And he was a very great teacher in this one class called Film Analysis. So there was like 15 people in the class, maybe 10. And okay, he says, you're going to take editing, you're going to take sound, you're going to take music, you're going to take, acting or whatever like this, and we go see a film in the theater, and then you kind of, now you're focusing on one element, and then you talk about it, what you saw, and it sort of was an eye-opener that there are all these different elements, and each one is critical to the whole, and it was a good thing, a good class, very good class. And then, I don't know, I liked reading very much the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, and I liked reading The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka.
Speaking of Frank Daniel and the AFI, I know you said on the Eraserhead DVD, at one point you wanted to quit the school. Because
yes,
they
the first day of the second year.
Yeah, because they put you in like general ed classes or something?
No, they put me in a first grade class.
Yeah.
Not first grade like in kindergarten, first grade.
Yeah,
but one of the first year class.
Right.
But they didn't really put me there, but I thought they did.
Sure, yeah.
And so there's, again, what you think is, people react to things that are not necessarily true.
Yeah.
And so then I quit.
Yeah.
And I'd been working on a different script, not Eraserhead. I'd been writing Eraserhead, but I was working on this thing called Gardenback, like you said. And so I quit, but then they brought me back, and I got to make Eraserhead.
So how many, you graduate, I've always tried to figure out kind of the timetable of Eraserhead's production, because after you graduated from the AFI, how many more years did it take to finish, how long were you still there trying to finish Eraserhead?
Well, okay, in 1970 I went there, and Eraserhead was finished in 76. So from around 71 until 76, I was working on Eraserhead. The AFI program was a 2-year program, but they let me stay there. Because I wasn't up at the big building, I was in the stables down below.
David, do you follow any daily routine when you're working on a creative project?
Like a daily routine?
Yeah, I don't know, when you're working on a creative project, do you follow, is there a routine? You do your program, you get up earlier in the morning, you read something, you watch...
I have coffee and meditation in the morning. And some smokes. I just, whatever it is, you go and try to do something.
What comes first, coffee or meditation?
Coffee. Some people get right up and meditate. I don't know what you all do, but I need some coffee first.
I can't meditate with coffee first, no.
No?
No way.
Uh-huh. See, we're all different.
Do you have any kind of routine with watching films? I mean, do you revisit Birdman and Fellini often, or do you watch...
No, I haven't seen any films for a long time.
Oh, no? Really?
Yeah. I never was a film buff.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah.
I remember reading an interview, critics love to compare you to Luis Buñuel, and I think you said...
I've never seen any of his films.
Yeah.
But it's your images has nothing to do with his images.
No. I don't know.
Do you like Murakami, the Japanese writer?
I've never read him.
So what are you currently working on and playing with?
I'm
Just
working
like
on
your
some
daily-
lithographs and some watercolors and some painting and some music with Big Dean. And Chris. That's a damn good question. Dean is working, believe me. He's working. Dean is a very talented young man. Very talented. Right here. Upstairs. And we're working on a film with a man named Jack Cruz up from South America. It's just basically an interview with Jack.
You mentioned your daughter yesterday. I thought it was really sweet. Did fatherhood change things for you?
Hello. I wanted to live the art life, and the art life in my mind then was you don't get married, you drink coffee, you smoke cigarettes, and you work. But that didn't ever hold too long. And now I have 4 kids, and great kids. So, there again, life is like, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. Things happen.
What's it like now being a dad again?
To Lula?
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah.
She's such a sweetheart.
Do you think you will make a movie about Maharishi?
Well, we're sort of working on one, but it's really difficult. I interviewed Dr. Bevan Morris for over 4 hours, and trying to hit, all these different things that Maharishi brought out, and that is, in our mind, going to be kind of the backbone of it, to hold things together. And so Noriko has gone through to call out all those answers from Dr. Bevan Morris, and then we're trying to elaborate on those things. But other things have come in all the time, so it's tough to, give all the attention to that.
David, when you fall in love, do that interfere in your creative process?
And fall in love with a girl, you mean?
Yeah.
Not really. Always the work is, you say, the most important thing.
Edit that comment out, Donnie.
What I meant is, like in your movies, when your protagonist, he looks at a woman, it's just like you explained that boom, something different happens, and the camera looks in a different way to that woman. Do that come from how you look to the woman that you felt in love in real life?
Not necessarily. I think it. I don't know what this you're talking about, really, but okay. It has to do with those characters and what they're feeling, and what comes out of the scene and the atmosphere and the feeling. So it's if they're feeling it. And the light is right, and the mood is right, and the angle is right. That's these different elements coming together, and they give you it'll translate to an audience.
My experience with the film I just did was I learned a lot about myself in the sense that I know that I still love to write and direct. I still love to create. But however, on this film for the first time ever, I also produced it myself. And that was something I really don't want to do again, just because it's like it's a whole nother hat you put on. My question for you is, when you produce your own movies, what's that experience like compared to just...
I'm not a producer.
Have you ever produced one of your movies?
Well, what do you mean, produced it?
I don't know, like just produced.
I've done, well, see, the thing is now there's all these different names for people, and there's still not a definition of what each one really does. Yeah. Some directors do, I don't know what.
Yeah, well, my producing experience was I organized the whole schedule.
Yes, that's. But if you're making a film, you become the producer. You do a budget, you plan out what you're going to do and when you're going to do it, and what you need to do it, and then you also direct the thing, and you hire the actors, and you talk to them, and you work with them. And so it's like a producer-director, you're a filmmaker is what it is. And you're trying to make a film. But a lot of times, some people love the money side of things, organization, and that's their thing. And other people don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was difficult for me because I all I wanted to do really on the movie was write and direct, work with the actors.
Yeah, exactly.
DP, and then it's like, oh, but I got to think about this too.
Sure.
It was hard.
Yeah.
I ended up still getting the movie that I wanted, which that was such a relief. But it's like on the next movie, I'll have somebody else do business with everybody.
Sure, but you gotta work with them. You know, they make a schedule that's impossible.
Yeah.
And my experience actually was, I mean, I'm primarily a writer, but I still, you know, I'm very kinetic and visual. But yeah, I think it hit home to me this year. And I think partially it's because we were working on each other's crews, like back to back to back to back to back. That I was just yearning to just crawl in a hole and write the whole time. So it was very clear to me in my experience that I can only be on a crew, including my own, like maybe once a year or something like that. It was a great experience because it was just further validation that where I belong is writing.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And it was great. I mean, even though it was painful to get there.
Yeah.
But I still appreciate it, and I still like to be part of it. But I think it was very clear that I only have enough reserve, I think, for that experience because it's so vastly different.
Yeah.
To be part of, like you were talking about yesterday, how it's so interactive, the actual making the film, whereas the creating and the ideas and all that is very quiet, and you have to go to this place. And I think the majority of my personality is that one, I realize. So even though I love to paint the picture, so to speak.
It would be nice if it was quiet and you could go deep in the shooting too.
Yeah.
It would really be beautiful.
So great.
Try to do that.
What can you do to make that possible?
Either be a trillionaire or go real low budget. And, you know, when I think so much now is it costs so much to shoot for a day that you can't really slow down.
Would you consider doing a really low budget thing and just having?
Yeah, I always believe in low budget, high salary. It doesn't work though.
Hey David, Fellini always said that when he starts a movie, when he writes a movie, it's one way, and when he finishes the movie, it's completely different movie of what he thought.
Exactly.
Did that happen to you?
Not really, but I sure know what he's talking about. It's more like in a script or something, it happens that you think it's this thing and it just balloons out and it becomes something else. On your shooting, you get ideas and it brings this thing in and changes this. Those things are, like I say, a thing isn't finished till it's finished. So you stay on your toes. You can get ideas in shooting and editing and, you know, working on a piece of music, whatever, that changes the thing.
You met Fellini, right?
I did meet Fellini twice. And Fellini and I share the same birthday, not year. And I love Fellini. I met him, bless you. I was having dinner one night, if you can picture this, in a garden restaurant south of Rome in the height of the mushroom season. All the courses of the meal were mushrooms, from little bitty ones to steak-sized mushroom. And I was sitting with Silvana Mangano, Isabella Rossellini, and Marcello Mastroianni. And I was telling Marcello how much I love Fellini. Next morning, Marcello's car, a big Mercedes, and driver are meeting me in front of my hotel. They drive me into Cinecittà, and I get to spend the whole day with Fellini. It was fantastic. And he was shooting Intervista with Tonino Delacoli as his DP. And later, I spent the whole day with him. And then, many years later, I was shooting a Barilla pasta commercial in Rome. And we were in a square where a fountain was, and Gerard Depardieu was the star of the commercial. And two of the people on the crew, the production manager and Tonino Delacoli, DP, knew Fellini really, really well. So I heard, and they all heard, that Fellini was sick. He was in a hospital in the north of Rome. They were moving him to Rome. And I said, do you think it'd be possible to go say hello to Fellini? And they said, I don't see why not, David. So it was set. They checked it out, and Fellini has a niece, a really great woman. And she set it up that we were going to go on Thursday night. And so Thursday afternoon we get word Fellini's going to have tests done and this, we can't go. But it's set for Friday night. So Friday night, we go over, and then the niece says, only David and Tonino can go in. And there were 3 or 4 other people that wanted to go in. But so Tonino and I went in, and we were taken by the niece to way deep into this hospital. She knocks on the door. She goes in. It's okay. She comes out. You can go in. So there was 2 single beds, and Fellini was sitting in a kind of a wheelchair and a little table in front of him, and there was a chair for me. And there was a man named Vincenzo, a journalist, in the room. And Tonino knew Vincenzo, so they started talking, and I went and sat. Fellini held my hand, and we talked for about a half an hour. And then I said goodbye to him and said, the whole world's waiting for your next film, and like this, and off I go. Gerard Depardieu flew us back to Paris, and I was watching TV. That was a Friday night, so Sunday, here on the TV, Fellini's gone into a coma, and he never came out. So I was one of the last people to see Federico Fellini.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
I know you say it you tell it in your book, but hearing you say it, that just is so great.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Do you get starstruck?
Yes, with Fellini.
How about with Stanley Kubrick? Have you spent time with him?
No, I was shooting The Elephant Man, and they came and said, Stanley would like to talk to you. And I got really scared because I heard that he recorded every conversation, and I didn't want to be recorded. And I said no, I don't want to do it. But that's another story. It's a real great story. I love this story for myself. But I was in the hallway at the Lee International Film Studios, and Jonathan Sanger brought 2 guys up to say hello to me, and they were from working with George Lucas. And they said, David, yesterday we went to Elstree Studio, and we got to meet Fellini, Kubrick. And then we were talking to Kubrick, and Kubrick said, how would you fellas like to come up to my house and see my favorite film? And they said, great. And they went up, and Kubrick showed them Eraserhead. So this was kind of a thrill.
But Kubrick did want to meet you. You just didn't want to be recorded.
Yeah.
Pardon? You know we're recording you right
yeah, I know. I wish I'd met him. I love Kubrick's films.
Do you like Barry Lyndon?
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's my favorite.
Speaking of Europe, I have ties to France, and I'm curious, just a general comment, what do you think about like French culture when you've interacted with it, maybe filmmakers, maybe their films? What's your kind of
I'm France's #1 fan. I love France. I love Paris. And I love going there. Now I just work at this Edem printing studio there. It's practically like a home away from home. And it's just, I just love it.
I'm just going to ask you about that too. Like, what about that? The conditions of that place attract you? What feels so good about it?
I don't. There's so many things. There's something in the air there, the look of the place, the mood, the people. You know, I think everybody has this thing where they resonate with certain peoples and places, and I don't know why. It just gets me. I like LA and Paris. And Łódź, Poland, but now they have corrupt politicians, and it's a hellhole now. But it was a great city in the winter.
What about
It's hard to get to Fairfield, as you well know. But I love Fairfield, and I love Revelations, the sandwich shop, and I love Chris and Dee, who run the Rockmapura Hotel. I love the feeling there and the people. It's really, when you think about it, you know, the lifestyle and the food and the water and the thinking, it's so far advanced from what's going on in the rest of the world.
Did you meditate in the dome when you were there?
Yes,
Are you a Siddha?
I am.
Would you recommend the program? A bunch of us are thinking about taking it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Did the town go crazy when you visited? Like when
Did
Jim
what?
Carrey was. Did the town go crazy when you were in Fairfield? Did
They went
everybody-
totally crazy.
Well, they did when Jim Carrey came to town. It was
Yeah,
just
that's
like,
Jim Carrey.
my
You know.
word.
They didn't go crazy, no.
Probably better that way.
Jim Carrey, as you all know, did an unbelievable speech in Fairfield.
David, do you think that when you're creating, the places that you are have an influence?
Definitely. Definitely. You'll paint one way in one place and paint a different way in another place. You'll think differently, you'll do something different. For sure.
And do you think that comes from the past of the place and of the people who live there that you're perceiving?
I don't know. The place is important. And it's just like French people are a certain way, and then you go over to Italy, and they're different. They're different type. You go to Germany, different type altogether. Go to England, different type altogether. And there's something about, maybe it's the shape of the land, or I don't know what, or just what is it? There's all these different things, and you go to any one of those places, it'll affect you, and you'll think a little bit different, not completely different, but it affects you. The people in the place, the mood, something in the air or the ground.
A bunch of us went to see the Grant Wood House that's in Eldon, a little town right outside of Fairfield, where the American Gothic house is. Yeah. Did you get to go there?
No,
at
I
all?
never knew it was
It's
there.
a little tiny thing. It's it's a shed. It's so tiny, and it's this iconic painting. And it was so extraordinary to see that. And like you're saying, Grant Wood made a consciousness out of something that you would pass by and not even notice.
Yeah, now I
amazing.
love sheds.
Yeah.
I'm a shed builder.
You build them, right?
Yeah, I love building sheds.
Do you like Portland, Oregon?
No.
No. Why not?
Portland is too much rain. It would be depressing to be there for me. I like Eastern Oregon, Eastern Washington, but I lived in Spokane, Washington, so I know the feel of that land there, and I love it. Love, 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 because it's drier and it doesn't rain all the time.
Like here in LA. We're here for 3 days, 2 days raining.
Yeah, I know. So it's just like Portland. Imagine if this was every day.
Yes. David, I know you kind of love the forests and the trees and the woods. Do you like camping at all?
I when I was little, I never stayed in a motel or hotel. We always camped out when we traveled. There in those days, there was like really clean, beautiful little parks. You pull off, set up your tent, sleep, and my father and mother would cook breakfast on the fire. It was like I thought it was normal. I didn't even know what a motel was, and but hotel. They're a much better way to live.
So you don't go camping at all now?
No.
Yeah. I've done a couple of trips from Montana, back and forwards, and just stayed in all these different national parks.
Yeah.
And it's so extraordinary.
Yeah, no, it's. I'm really glad I had that experience.
Yeah.
Really glad.
Yeah, and Sequoia National Park, the trees are so massive, and it actually that's probably the most spiritual place I've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
You feel so small and insignificant in a really beautiful way.
Yeah, but you are totality.
Yeah, and there's bears. Your bears are much bigger than the Australian bears.
Grizzly bears are 14 feet on their hind legs.
I saw some up in Montana.
Yeah, they're something.
Yeah. I'm glad they were a fair way away.
You don't want to mess with them.
No.
And they say the only thing you can really do is lay down and play dead.
Mm.
And but that's 50-50 chance.
Yeah. Don't look like sport.
Did you travel with your dad when he was doing all his research about the diseases on the trees and all that?
Every summer, we'd go up to Idaho City from Boise, and I didn't. They'd go off. The Forest Service people would go off into the woods. I went off into the woods too. My dad would drive me. I had a .22 rifle, and he'd drive me with a Forest Service pickup deep into some woods and let me out and come back and get me at dusk. And I was allowed to shoot chipmunks only. And because the forest was overrun with chipmunks. I shot a bird one time, and I felt so bad about it afterwards. A bird flew in this high ponderosa pine, and I just went, and I see this burst of feathers. It floated down and plopped into a creek and twirled and rolled away. But there's something about not worrying about aiming. You're actually more, and it's something to do with meditation and golfing and all this kind of stuff. You're more accurate when you're just relaxed and going with a different kind of thing. I learned that on that shooting that bird, but I felt very bad. I felt bad now about shooting the chipmunks and jackrabbits in desert south of Boise, and but when you're I killed many things.
I heard you really like insects.
Yeah, insects.
Can you talk about insects?
Well, I like a lot of different things. I like birds. I like many different things. I like. I used to put insects in paintings sometimes, and they're a great little texture. Like a lot of times, repetition of shape. Like you have one fly is one thing, but 17 flies together there's something that happens.
Have you seen much of the Australian Aboriginal painting?
No, I never have. I'm fascinated with the Aborigines. I'm fascinated with. Remember, I started being fascinated with them when the Right Stuff movie came out, and they're flying over Australia, going around the Earth. Do you remember this scene?
Yeah.
And they're doing the sparks down below, and these guys see them flying around the ship. And I felt like what they say is Vedic civilization was everywhere at one time, and it disappeared. But maybe the indigenous people have this, memory in them. And some things have been carried, a lot of things have been lost, but it's a fantastic thing.
Yeah, it's an amazing culture. And I was teaching filmmaking up in Arnhem Land, and the whole culture is pure storytelling. And it's the land, the song, the music, the dance, and it's just so fluid in their life.
Yeah.
It's really quite an incredible thing. And to see the way they design and they paint, and that comes from the animals and the sky, it's really incredible.
Kind of magical, yeah.
Whenever I watch Lost Highway, I'm always very captivated by Robert Blake's performance. What was it like working with him?
Solid gold. Mm-hmm. He was a real good guy.
Yeah.
And I saw Robert Blake on the Johnny Carson show way back when, and it struck me watching him. He did not care one bit about what anybody thought about him or his work or about the business. Nothing. And I thought that was really refreshing. And I always kind of respected him for being his own man, And so Robert Blake, he came up to the house, and had a real good talk with him, and while we were talking, he told me he was really close with Natalie Wood when they in the old days, and he said Natalie Wood would never have gotten in that little boat that night, and she was deathly afraid of water. Never in a million years would she have gotten in that boat.
Yeah, I read his book recently.
His book is filled with anger and
yeah,
yeah.
It is. I was disappointed that he didn't talk about Lost Highway. He didn't talk about.
He called me Captain Ahab.
Oh, yeah.
And he said he didn't understand one thing.
No, I guess that was his last movie. He hasn't done anything since, but I love that, he goes from In Cold Blood and Electric Light in Blue to that, which I think was totally his swan song.
This guy I guess he's a very troubled childhood, and that sets people off on a bad road.
Yeah.
David, it's just because he's talking about the Lost Highway, and I remember the day, like years ago, when I left the cinema in Rio de Janeiro after watching the Lost Highway for the first time, and I was so shocked. Like, wow, this is new. Somebody, had something so different and so amazing. And do you think that somebody can project a person?
Project a person?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They project them all the time.
David, I guess we're getting close to 11:30, but one of the last questions I want to make sure I asked you was, when you're creating, do you automatically or often get into a zone where you feel like you're transcending like very similar experience to TM? Because sometimes I've felt that in work, and then that's when I know that like I'm on the right path.
Well, you're more enlightened than I am. I sort of know what you're talking about, but not really. I get into it, and I feel it, but it's still pretty far from, being with the transcendent all the time.
I have one more comment about that. I wanted to let you know that Eraserhead was the first film I watched where I feel like I transcended or something.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Dwayne said it was the longest 90 minutes of his life, and for me it flew by. It felt like an hour at most, and I just wanted to share that. I have a spiritual connection to it. As you said, it's your most spiritual film, and I feel that.
Yeah.
And I can't articulate it, but I want you to know that I have that connection with it.
That's beautiful. I might have said this before, but I watched it maybe 2 years after I finished it, and it was in a theater to check a print, I think. So I was alone. It didn't really, there was no pressure on anything. I just watched it. And it struck me that it was a perfect film.
And on that note, take a break now, everybody.
Okay.
Back in about 15 minutes.
See you, 10 or 15, whatever you guys want.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks a million.
A lot of people
Same shirt. Think about it. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
You guys are.
But this being really the only consciousness-based filmmaking.
Yeah, that was
Aside from your name, that's its distinguishing feature that we're going to push more in this third year.
Yeah, that's real good.
Yeah.
I'll try.
Yeah, give it a shot. If not, then no worries.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could do it later or something, too, if I thought of something.
Last couple minutes. Oh, yeah, or later, whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, we're ready to get started again.
Everyone's still up off with the big window. Waiting to get in the way.
How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, good.
Good.
Fun getting all these students out here.
Yeah, for sure.
They're a lively bunch.
I think the weather's getting better, too.
Yeah.
Should be a nice afternoon for everybody.
Are you going on the course in Italy? I am.
No, I'm
around.
not.
No?
I'm not.
Because I love being in that area,
Yeah.
so I'm going to go there.
Well, it's supposed to be beautiful. I bet that place where you're going is
Then I'm going to go to Salisbury to do a little PK.
Uh-huh.
Because that's only about 2 hours from there.
Yeah.
So it'll be a little Italian, like Como. I love, well, like you feel about Paris. I feel about Italy.
Oh, I love Italy too. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, it's great.
Donald?
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll be beautiful.
Yeah.
That'll be a beautiful summer.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then back in Fairfield for his recertification.
Because talk to
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, looking forward to it. They've kind of already provisionally recertified me. John is sort of, you're blessed.
Great.
But, I want to do the whole course now.
Yeah, beautiful, man. That's great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Super duper.
So, meanwhile, working with Jim on a bunch of new projects. We want to still get together with you too.
Yeah.
When you have time.
Yeah. Please say hello again.
I will. The students will be visiting his art studio today.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Really good.
So, there's only about 3 people out there, so why don't we get started again? So if everybody could get seated. And, why don't we start, the students graduate next week. And so some of them will be,
some of them maybe,
and some of them will be continuing on with their careers with a new skill set, and others will be starting their career. What kind of guidance or advice might you have for them as they begin this new chapter in their lives?
We sort of covered that. It's, I think from school to, the big world is a transition that's tough. And so I think you just have to remember, keep your eye on the donut and not on the hole. And,
beautiful.
Yeah.
Some artists feel like they need drugs and alcohol to create art or cope with creating art, whether it's film or music. And I just wanted to hear your take on that.
Drugs and alcohol are extremely important for the creative process.
Again, another comment to edit out.
No, it's like now I know that there's so many different kind of drugs. I was reading 680,000 people from 12 years above took heroin last year. 680,000 people. And then there's drugs that are 50 to 100 times more powerful than morphine. There's drugs that make you have seizures, vomiting, hallucinations, all kinds of stuff. Pharmaceutical drugs and laced drugs and all different things. There's these bath salts. And there's so many different drugs. And I picture the country is heavily drugged. Really, a lot of this going on. Yeah. And it's really pretty frightening. And just like driving down the road, you don't know what's going on in different cars, and you don't know when you're going through a neighborhood what's going on in different houses. And it's a crazy world. But as you all know, everything is in the transcendent. Everything. And if you can get friendly with that, infuse that, grow in that, all experiences are open, and there's no bad side effects. None. Only good. And that's where the real creativity is. The creativity that creates everything that is a thing. And so the number one thing is transcend. Transcend, transcend. And it's serves the work and serves the life.
As a director, one thing that I was very terrible at the beginning, but I've gotten a little better at, is like when it comes to music, trying to explain to composer what it is that I want. In your book, you talk about that sometimes when you go and meet Angelo Badalamenti, sometimes he doesn't play what you want, and you talk him through it. Has there ever been a time when Angelo has not been on the same page with you at all? And if so, what do you usually do?
there's lots of times when, especially in the beginning, words mean different things to different people. And so it's this thing about communicating. And with Angelo, it's easy to see when you're communicating properly, because you start playing a thing, if it's what you want, and it feels right. But I always say there's probably a lot of things that would feel correct, but there's trillions that won't feel correct. But there's more than one that will feel correct. And so it's talking. And the thing is that what is this word feels correct? That's the trick. It's intuition. And that's another reason to get friendly with the transcendent. It's intuition, knowingness. And so this is the huge, tool for, anything in life. Intuition. And it's magical. It's magical. It's like without it, you're dealing. I don't know what you use, in its place. But it helps you through everything. Something isn't quite right, and you feel it. You know it's not right, and then you see a way to go to make it right. And that thing is what it's all about. And it involves experimenting, action and reaction, trial and error. But it talks to you and tells you when it feels correct. And you got to have that thing, or you're fresh out of luck.
On that, when you're writing, do you feel that your characters talk to you?
Yes, they talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can
they
hear,
start talking to you, and
hear
this one
vernacular.
talks this way, and this one talks that way. Yeah. Just like people. They're people. It's a real world that opens up. And you see it and hear it and feel it, and there it is.
Do you ever sort of, with my character, I've created her kind of spirit animal, which is the raven. Do you ever feel any sort of connection to any specific animal?
No.
What about the dead cat in Eraserhead?
The dead chicken.
Yeah.
I've made a fish kit, made a chicken kit, I made a duck kit, I've dissected a cat, and all these things, you learn a lot of things, and you get sort of feelings. It's like dissecting a fish could be like listening to music. You could get ideas from it. You don't know where ideas are going to come from. It's not that everybody should run out and dissect a fish. It's all these different experiences, feed the machine of ideas. Somehow catch ideas.
Did you see Fishing with John, the John Lurie series?
I've seen one of those. Yes. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
David, you said you don't watch a lot of films. Do you go to a lot of exhibitions? Have you seen a lot of painting shows?
I don't really like to go out.
Yeah.
I'm making a film that's about raw human emotion, about a girl that finds out she's adopted, and it's a film that's close to my heart because of adoption running in my family. But because it's a film where there's a lot of emotion in it, in the editing process, I want to keep that up. I want to keep the emotion strong so that other people feel it. Based on your experience in making films that are emotional, do you feel like you put more of your emotion while you're in that process, or do you hold it back at all to let the emotion affect you?
This is the trickiest thing, emotion. And I've said this a bunch of times. You're looking at a film with a bunch of people, and the person on their screen is crying their heart out. Something very sad has happened. No one in the audience is crying. And then you see on the news some person talking about the loss of their daughter or something, and the expression on the face, and it just transfers over, and you feel it. This thing of transferring emotion over is so tricky, and it involves all the elements working together, And a little bit too much of that breaks it. A little bit too little doesn't happen. It's so tricky. But you want the people to feel that thing.
But do you think about, like, because when I'm editing what I shot, usually I'm not thinking about what they are going to feel. I'm thinking about what it makes me feel.
Yes, you are the audience. Exactly right. You can't second guess a fictitious audience, an imaginary audience. You are the audience. If you feel it, like Mel Brooks said, if you're writing a script and you don't laugh, they're not going to laugh.
David, 2 days ago we met Bill Borden, who's produced a lot of successful movies. And when I found out that he had worked with the director Robert Mulligan, I kind of flipped out. Because here's the thing, I rewatched To Kill a Mockingbird again recently, and like Summer of 42 movies that Robert Mulligan directed, and I realized he was the David Lynch of his time. You know, when people think David Lynch, I think they think in the most superficial way weird. But when I think of movies, I think of like, you know, a community, a neighborhood, a love of America, some darkness underneath all of it, but you know, charismatic, gorgeous woman and stuff. I just want to mention, you know, and you know, great heroes and really wicked villains, but always some kind of, and if not a happy ending, always still something that causes characters to persevere. And I don't know. I just want to comment. I feel like you and him have some kind of, I don't know, like you and him have so much in common. It struck me a lot just watching his movies again.
To Kill a Mockingbird is a magic stuff.
Ultimate. So beautiful.
David, I wish I had a Murakami book to give to you. Cause
I wish you did too.
yeah. I always read him. He's my favorite writer, and you are my favorite filmmaker. And one day I thought that somehow he was you, but in a literary way, you know. And that's why I felt so identified with them both.
Well, I'll try to, you know, start reading them.
Send them a book. It's great.
Did you ever get into the Jodish part of the movement? And do you know your rising sign?
Yes. You know, to do a yagya or something like that, you go through the pundits, Jyotish, they do a reading, and they tell you what's going on.
Do you remember your sign?
I don't, you know, it's different than in Western.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what my rising and moon sign are in Jyotish.
Remember what time you were born?
I've done that. I think it was 3:24 in the morning, I think.
Right, I'll let you know.
She's good. I know you almost collaborated with Kanye West on a music video, and I was just wondering if that is something that you want to continue maybe trying to do with another contemporary artist, making music videos.
I just loved this one song, Blood on the Leaves. Blood in the Leaves? Yeah, and I just loved it. But I did never get ideas that were thrilling, especially thrilling to Kanye. So I just kind of, and maybe somewhere I'm thinking about it, but I don't know. It didn't happen. I sometimes music talks to you and you just get tons of ideas. And I thought that one would conjure enough to make a video, but it never did. So I just thinking about it sometimes.
Were you involved in any way in the commercial for your coffee? The one where the robot explodes?
No, not a bit.
No.
I wanted to have a thing where people would, you know, make commercials, you know, just whatever they wanted to do for the coffee, and maybe have a contest or something. But some people have just sense stuff.
Yeah, I'll go.
No.
In the freezer.
You don't have to answer this.
Why did you choose to shoot Blue Velvet in Wilmington?
I didn't really choose Wilmington, but it worked out. Blue Velvet really was not. Wilmington is a little too far south, and like in the world of Blue Velvet, I never really pictured moss hanging from the trees, you know, like in Wilmington. But they do have logging and all this stuff, so it was, and there was even a place in North Carolina called Lumberton, and so it was kind of like, again, fate. But that's where Dino was building his studios, and he was making 13 pictures there, and Blue Velvet was one of them.
I know it's tricky to try to get Roy Orbison to let you use in Dreams in that movie. I know he said no at the beginning.
No. I never talked to Roy about it. His company, we just squeaked in under the wire, getting in Dreams, the original. Right after that, I think it's Monument Records went bankrupt. And you couldn't have gotten them. They were all locked up, even if you paid them $1 trillion. And poor Roy, he lost those things. And so he made an album, remakes. And he was going to sell them on late night TV. And in those days, there were these ads like at 2 in the morning, blue screen, yellow block letters, play some music, and you buy this thing, send in. And Jeff Ayeroff at Virgin Records heard about this and called Roy and said, "Roy, don't do this. We'll release the record on Virgin Records." And so then, when Blue Velvet came out, what happened was Roy's friends took him to see Blue Velvet, and he did not like it. And he didn't like the way the song was used, because it meant something to him completely, different. So then his friend said, "Yeah, but Roy, it's really great. You should see it again, and not just see it with more open mind and like that." Roy is really a good guy, and he went and saw it again, and he said, "You're right. It's okay." And then they used some footage from Blue Velvet for a video that somebody was doing for, I guess it might have been in Dreams, I'm not sure.
I think it was, yeah.
And then I got to meet Roy, and because I told Jeff these remakes are not right, they're not good. It's not the same at all. And he said, "Well, David, it's too late, you can't change it," and I'd already promised him we're going to put it out. But if you want to go in the studio and remake In Dreams with Roy, we'll set that up. And I thought, wow, that's a huge responsibility. And so T-Bone Burnett was a producer, and I was there to, do whatever. And Roy, and I would try to talk to Roy like an actor and pump him up for, because it wasn't quite happening. And he said, "David, in the old days, there'd be a guy like you who would do that job, and say, it wasn't feeling right, it wasn't doing it here, it wasn't happening there." So he was perfectly fine with that. We recorded it, and it was pretty good, but not like as good as the original. And we were mixing it, and it was like 5 o'clock or 5:30 in the afternoon. So I went up to the engineer and I whispered to him, "Is there a room I could go, a private room I could go to?" And he said, "What?" I said, "I want to go meditate." And he said, "Sure." So Barbara Orbison was watching and say, what is it? I said, "I'm just going to go off and meditate." And she said, "What kind of meditation do you do?" And I said, "Transcendental meditation." She said, "Roy and I do transcendental meditation." So we went and meditated together. It was fantastic.
You guys later used Crying in Mulholland Drive.
Yeah.
Did you happen to see Lana Del Rey's rendition of Blue Velvet?
On the TV, yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty good.
Yeah. I really love her.
Yeah.
I love her so much.
Yeah.
David, some people say that ghosts are memories that cannot be erased.
Fine.
Do you think it somehow has to do with these artistic things that we perceive that go through time?
I don't know much about ghosts. I've never seen one. Have you all seen them? Has anybody seen a ghost? You have?
We lived in a haunted house that it was like, none of us believed in it before, and then it was like 30 different instances of 15 different people having experiences separate from each other, and it was like, this is too much. It was actually in the Frank Lloyd Wright house in Fairfield.
Huh.
Good architect.
Well, it's
Very
really
good
old
architect.
house.
Yeah.
But yeah, super creepy.
If this is, I've been wanting to ask this for a while now.
What do you put in your hair?
No, I'm past that. I'm past that. If you were a hot dog and you were starving to death, would you eat yourself?
For sure.
Yeah, beautiful.
So we have about 5 minutes for questions remaining before we do photos.
What's your favorite and least favorite quality in a person in one word each?
Favorite quality?
And least favorite.
Bliss would be the favorite, and lack of bliss would be the.
What would you say is your greatest talent?
My greatest talent? I don't know.
David, piggybacking off of Eden's question, I've noticed, having met with Dean a couple of times here and having experienced Mindy and how chill they are, and the people around you, and worked with all the guys at DLF TV and growing up with some of the guys at the foundation. They're all very mellow people. Is there qualities that you look for, or maybe subconsciously, in crew members and people you work with like that? Do you surround yourselves with those kinds of people intentionally?
Yeah, I think when you it's common sense. You want to work with people that you feel good with, and that can, do the work. So there's two things, and it's, you're going to be together every single day. It's real good when things are smooth and happy, and everybody's enjoying themselves.
David, how do you feel about the fact that you've had such an influence on other artists? What does that feel like for you?
Like I say, my doctor has asked me not to think about things like that.
I have a question. How is your process different on your most recent films than it was on Eraserhead?
It's the same.
It's the same. I'm trying to think of the way to say it. Were you more involved with the art direction in Eraserhead, or was there anything?
Well, yeah, I was involved with that 100%, but
It was a smaller crew? Is that?
yeah. But that's the way I thought it was supposed to be. You see what I mean? And I knew nothing about film, zip, and I thought of it as more like painting, but you still can keep that same way of thinking with lots of people helping you. It's just communicating. It's not like an ego thing, I want it my way, and start screaming. You want it what's right for the idea, to realize that thing in the proper way. So you need to get everybody on the same path based on that idea, or else it won't work. It would be great to build sets and get in there and do all those things and do all the stuff. But it'd take another, it would take 5 years, at least.
David, how many people ideally do you like to have in your crew?
I don't have. There's not a number. It's like the smaller the better.
There's a documentary about Kubrick, and it revealed the hoarding of all his research material, which has now become a museum. And do you find that after you've finished a project that you can shed all that stuff, or do you hang on to things?
These days, I thought when it was over, except some things are, special, and I would like to have saved more things. But unfortunately, I didn't. So, and now, a lot of the times you release a film in Blu-ray or whatever, they want, bells and whistles, and a lot of those things for me are, kind of lost.
Like the storyboards for Eraserhead.
Yeah, all this stuff.
Do you ever go back and watch your first film recently? Have you done that?
Well, in a way, because it's out on Blu-ray, I had to go to the lab and like each territory did their own Blu-ray. So I've seen many different versions of Eraserhead Blu-ray, and the Japanese head and shoulders above all of them. Somehow it was so incredibly beautiful, and it was so organic and so beautiful. They just did a great job.
Can you tell us what lithographs you're doing? Anything about the lithographs you're working on now?
I'm working, lithographs you can do on different things, like zinc plates. I started doing, my first 12 were on zinc plates, and more like hard edge and not any kind of really organic stuff. Then I got onto the stones, became way more organic, thrilling to the soul,
So thrilling.
and I've done over 200 of those on stones. Then now, recently, I've started working on vellum, and I can work on them here, roll them up, send them to Patrice in Paris, and he can print a proof, send it to me, and I can approve it or whatever. And this vellum, I like, at least right now, better than stones. And it's really thrilling to me to work on this vellum. I just love it.
I was just talking to someone about vellum. But it used to be skin. It used to be actually animal skin.
Yeah.
And now it's just extreme. The surface is fantastic.
Yeah, it's really beautiful
Do you use
surface.
grease pencils, or what do you
Use,
mostly?
grease ink and grease pencils.
All right, time for photos.
How do we do photos, and what is the deal?
We're going to do one group photo together, and then individual photos if you're good with that.
Sure.
So.